Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Welcome to the online class of Nawabganj Government College. I am Sayyid Rafiqul Hassan Milan once again, and today I will discuss September 1, 1939, the poem written by W.H. Auden. You all know that September 1, 1939, it is one of the most significant day in the history of mankind, especially in 20th century. You all know that on that very day, the Second World War began. So, the poem belongs to the unit 12 from old book, and I think unit 10 from the new book. In my hand I have an old book, and the chapter is about peace and conflict. So September 1, 1939, this is one of the most significant, one of the most remarkable days, on which days the Second World War began, and the whole world, it has been plunged into a kind of great conflict with each other. So, as the poem goes, my dear students, I sit on one of the dives on 52nd Streets. This is the situational beginning of a poem. Something great, something very big event happened, and just at that time, just at that moment, where and when and how the poet actually received the news. At that time, the poet was sitting in one of the dives of New York, that means on 52nd Streets of New York. And the poet says, uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire. As the world war has already broken out, so everywhere there were uncertainties, and the poet was afraid. Actually, war never brings peace. War always brings unhappiness, uncertainties. War always brings fearfulness. Nobody feels any kind of peace or any kind of tranquility of mind in the midst of war. So the poet says that uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire. You all know that, as history says, Hitler or Germany, they used to tell the people of the world from 1929 that in the world there will be no more world war or no more war. So Hitler always gave the hope that he will never be involved in another war. No more war will come, no more war awaiting for the people of the world. But it was a clever hopes, it was a kind of fake hopes, it was a kind of false hope. Finally, we find that everything expires and war begins. Of a low dishonest decade, that means that very time of 1929 to 39, 10 years, this decade was a low and it was a dishonest year. Low, actually it means a kind of very insignificant, very futile, very useless 10 years, and in those 10 years, the world leaders, they have actually deceived the people of the world. They have told so many things, but they have not kept their promises. Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lands of the world. So when war begins, what happens? And when especially a kind of world war begins, what happens? The wave of anger, the wave of fear, the wave of cruelty, it actually spreads, it actually spreads all over the world. That means it touches the bright half of the world and the dark half of the world. We all know that the bright and dark, both of the phase complete the full part of the world. So the bright part means the half part of the world, and the darkened part means also another half of the world. Obsessing our private lives. Whenever war begins, what happens actually? Nobody can escape the casualties, the effect, the influences of war. So every single private life or every single personal life is affected by the cruelty of war. So the poet is saying that obsessing our private life, the unmentionable order of death, and everywhere. Here actually the word unmentionable, it does not mean anullekkhito, it means unmentionable, that means anakankito, unexpected. Order of death everywhere, the smell of death, spread everywhere and offends the September night, and that very smell of war and that very odor of death, it actually offends, it actually grab, it actually it takes everything from September night. The September night that was serene, that was cool, that was very calm, it has been affected by the war. It has been affected by the declaration of the war, World War II, War II. So finally this poem actually expresses deep concern of the poet, deep hatred, deep dissatisfaction of the poet about any war. Actually, nobody, we never want any kind of war. We want peace, but peace dropping slow, as already we know. Yet says that. So, my dear students, whenever you are told to write any theme of this poem, the first sentence you have to start with the thing that here the grim realities or the cruelties of war has been expressed in a very robust manner. And the poet says that war always brings uncertainties, war always brings fearfulness, and war always brings anger and fear everywhere, and it actually affects every single person's personal life. And finally, the odor of death or the smell of death or the cruelties of killing, it circulates all over the world, dark part and the bright part. No one can escape the grim or the cruel realities of a war. So the poet actually urges the people of the world, the leaders of the world, that we should not actually make any kind of war. That means we should be always against the war. Okay, my dear students.